السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأدخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. Welcome everybody to day 2 of our explanation of Ilbiri's poem on seeking knowledge and living a purposeful life. And last week or 2 weeks ago actually, because last week was too cold to come. 2 weeks ago we started the poem. We gave an introduction. We talked about the author, and we talked about really the topic of the. And I wanted to start with a quick review, inshallah. I have some candy here. Those who are listening. طيب, so we said that the poem. I have some of the answers up here. Yeah. Who's the author of the poem? Who's the author? What's his name? Yeah. Ayman. Ilbiri. أحسنت. I'm gonna throw it. So, and of course we know his full name is Abu Ishaq ibn Mas'ud. Okay, and we said that he's from an area. Okay, from where? Where did he used to live? نعم. Well, that's his tribe. نعم. التجيبي يعني from the area. But where did he live when he wrote this poem? Where was he living? الأندلس. أحسنت. بارك الله فيك. See, your son's like, that's mine. You know, my dad answers, I get the candy. Alhamdulillah. طيب, جميل. And I think I have one more of those. So we said that we started the first 5 lines. And we said that the first 5 lines were talking about what? What was the theme of the first? Ayman, you can't have all the candy, man. What was the theme of the first 5 lines? تفت فؤادك الأيام فتى وتنحى. See, subhanAllah, if you listen, you would have had candy, man. Ayman's gonna get the second one. طيب, what was it? أحسنت, mashallah. See, Ayman was listening. See, but you can give it to Salim. Oh, you owe him, man. Well, see, he gave it to you. طيب. Jameel. See, that's the benefit of having good friends, mashallah. They get you candy. طيب. Jameel. So, inshallah, let's read the first 5 that we covered, bi'idhnillah. Okay, and then read, I guess the next. So let's see. You guys can see it here. So those of you who want to get a copy on your phone, just scan this with your camera, and you'll be able to get it on your phone. Okay, I'm gonna leave it up for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3. طيب. It should be able to open. It opened. Can anybody confirm it works? I always forget to put the permission. نعم. جميل. طيب. Let's start. So I'll have it here for you guys so we can follow up inshallah. يلا. أعوذ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يلا تفضل.
تفت فؤادك الأيام فتى وتنحت جسمك الساعات نحتا وتدعوك المنون دعاء صدق ألا يا صاحي أنت أريد أنت أراك تحب عرشا ذات
عرسا
ذات غدر أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا تنام الدهر ويحك في غطيت بها حتى إذا مت انتبهت فكم ذا أنت مخدوع وحتى متى لا ترعوي عنها وحتى أبا بكر دعوتك لو أجبت إلى ما فيه حظك لو عقلت.
Keep going till 10 inshallah.
إلى علم تكون به إماما مطاعا إن نهيت وإن أمرت ويجلو ما بعينك ويجلو ما بعينك من غشاها ويهديك السبيل إذا ضللت وتحمل منه في ناديك تاجا ويكسوك الجمال إذا اغتربت ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا ويبقى ذخره لك إن ذهبت هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من أردت وكنز لا تخاف عليه لصا خفيف الحمل يوجد حيث كنت.
بارك الله فيك. طيب, جميل. طيب, so last time we did 1 to 5, tamam, and he was talking about death, right? He was talking about how we are, as the days go by, we're going closer to our death, tamam, and that the days are like crushing your heart and taken away from your body, tanhitu, right? It's taken away from your body. And then he talked about that death is like calling your name, looking for you, right? And then he talked about, because remember, the poem is what? Someone insulted this person, Ilbiri, the author. He was insulted by someone, and so he wanted to kind of give him advice for himself and for everybody else. And we will find out that his name is Abu Bakr. The person who insulted the author, his name is Abu Bakr. طيب. So he's telling Abu Bakr that I see that you are very busy with the dunya, and I see that you have forgotten about the reality of the akhirah and death. Tamam? طيب. So we stopped at 5. So then he says Aba Bakr. Now he starts calling him. He says Aba Bakr. يعني يا أبا بكر. Okay? You can do that in Arabic. You can take off the ya when you're calling someone. أبا بكر دعوتك لو أجبت. طبعا lines 6 and 7, they're going to talk about encouraging people to seek knowledge. Okay? So he says أبا بكر دعوتك لو أجبت. Oh Abu Bakr, okay? I've invited you if you're willing to listen. إن أجبت. طب to what? What are you inviting him to? He says إلى ما فيه حظك لو عقلت. Okay? لو عقلت. To that which is of the best of your interest. Al-hadh, يعني something that is really good for you, if you really understood. Tamam? And so he's calling him to something that is really going to be beneficial to him. You see here in the footnote, he says that Abu Bakr, some disagreed. They said it's his son. Others said it's his cousin. Others said that it's somebody يعني from the ulama or somebody that has a position. Allahu a'lam what it is. يعني. المهم that you, when you listen to this poem, put yourself as Abu Bakr. If you want to benefit a lot from this poem, put yourself as Abu Bakr. Tamam? And so you can benefit, and I can benefit as well from this poem. So now he's inviting him to something that will really benefit him. طيب. What's this something? He says, إلى علم تكون به إماما. And remember guys, we said that this is not really a sharh, it's not really an explanation. We're just going through the lines because there's so much, yani if this was an explanation, it would take us yani months. But just going through the poems and trying to get some, through the lines and trying to get some benefit. تمام? طيب, he says, إلى علم تكون به إماما. يعني أدعوك إلى علم. I'm calling you to what? To knowledge. طبعا here he specifically means the knowledge of the deen. العلم الشرعي. But you can also apply this to general knowledge, right? And so we know in general that knowledge is power. تمام? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Zumar, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Yeah, and this is a rhetorical question. Are the people who have knowledge and the people who have knowledge the same? It doesn't need, it's obvious that they're not the same. لا يستوون. لا يستوون. There's no comparison between the one who has knowledge, information, and the one who has no information. So he's saying, I'm calling you إلى علم تكون به إماما مطاعا إن نهيت وإن أمرت. Now, just kind of like a side note, when it comes to al-ilm al-shar'i, is it obligatory on people to seek knowledge? Huh?
No.
I see yeses and nos. Yalla, who wants to tell me? I want to hear the yes first. Who said yes? نعم تفضل. Why? What's your proof? Huh? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ahsant. Oh, that's a good proof. Iqra. The very first ayah that came down is Iqra. Okay, which has to do with knowledge. Iqra. Tamam. From all the words, billions of words that we have in millions of words in the Arabic language, Iqra is the first one. Ahsant. Naam. What else? We have a clear hadith, by the way. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says, and then of course the only thing that Allah asked us to ask for more of it in the Quran is what? Al-ilm. What surah? It's actually in the poem, it's going to come up, so I don't want to spoil it. So anyways, so Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says, طلب العلم فريضة على. So طلب العلم, right? فريضة على كل Muslim. That seeking knowledge is a farida. What's a farida? Yani obligatory on every Muslim. Brother Hamza, what are you saying? So I have to go study all of Sharia? From Tahara all the way to Jinayat and Al-Qada and all that stuff I have to what do you guys think? Is it wajib on everybody to learn everything? So it's wajib on everybody to be a scholar? What's wajib? So the general rule is this. Whatever you need to do and you're responsible for, it's wajib for you to have the knowledge of that. I guess, to a level where you can actually fulfill that obligation. Now, مثال. I think maybe like when I kind of let it sleep, it does that. طيب. مثال, for example, you have to what? You have to make wudu. طيب. So if you have to make wudu, what knowledge do you need to have? Huh? What knowledge do you need to have? If you need to make wudu, what knowledge do you need to have? How to make wudu? You have to have the ilm of tahara. You have to know which water is clean, which water is not clean. تمام? طيب. When you become baligh, okay, you reach the age of puberty, you have to what? You have to pray. طيب. So now the knowledge of prayer becomes what? Obligatory on you. طيب. Okay, so you have money, yeah, mashallah, and you deal in business, and you have a job. So now what ilm is obligatory on you? Zakah. What else? We just say zakah, but what else? Al-mu'amalat, right? And so transactions, you need to know what riba is, right? You need to know what's halal, what's haram in buying and selling, right? You have to sell a car, but you need to know what's halal and what's haram. It's haram for you to hide the defects of the car, right? It's haram for you to say that, oh, everything works, and you know that half of it doesn't work. So this is obligatory information for you. Tamam? So that's what it means by طلب العلم فريضة on every Muslim. طيب, so he's calling him to إلى علم تكون به إماما. يا سلام. He says to knowledge that would make you an imam. Okay? طبعا it's important to understand here. He's saying that this knowledge الشرعي will make you an imam. Is he saying that you seek knowledge to become an imam? What's he saying here? Is that why we should seek knowledge?
Yes.
What do you guys think? Hannah says yes.
Yes.
Is that the reason? There should be no doubt about this. That is not the reason. Okay? And that's a bad intention. Yani I'm going to go seek knowledge. I'm going to study Sharia. I'm going to study Hadith. To be what? To be an imam. So people say, oh, he's an imam. Oh, he's knowledgeable. That's actually a really bad intention. Lakin we seek knowledge, why? To remove jahl. To remove ignorance. To be able to worship Allah better. Tamam? And sometimes people say, oh, I'm going to go seek knowledge because the people need it. The people need me. No, the people don't need you, okay? You need, the knowledge. You need it before anybody else. Tamam? And this is something that, subhanAllah, it gets to everybody. He says, لكن الإمامة is the thamara, a fruit. And there's a difference here. It's not the niyyah, it's the thamara. And so when you seek knowledge, okay, then people will take you as a leader. Even in the general knowledge, like when you sit with someone, like you think of the people you sit with. How do you feel when you sit with someone that has no knowledge? It's just like empty-headed, and it just talks about useless things. You don't want to sit with them. But when there's someone that has knowledge, right, you want to sit with them, right? You just want to sit and listen, and right? And so he's saying that when you have knowledge, you become like a leader. مُطَاعًا إِن نَهَيْتَ وَإِن أَمَرْتَ. The one who has knowledge, الشرعي, okay, people come to him and they say, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Right? And you see that the ulama, they would say do this. Even back in the day, you would read about the Khalifa. Okay, the Imam would tell him do this, he would do it. Subhanallah. Yeah, because of that knowledge, right? مُطَاعًا إِن نَهَيْتَ وَإِن أَمَرْتَ. يعني you will be followed whether you give a command to do something or to stay away from something. Right? And subhanallah, like they mentioned the story of Harun al-Rashid, one of the great khulafa of the Abbasid dynasty. And you know, the khulafa, what they would do, they don't have time. Well, I don't know if they don't have time, but I guess they don't have time to teach their kids, be with them. So they would bring a mu'addib or a teacher, right, to the palace or to the castle. And he would sit and teach and so Harun al-Rashid had two kids, right? Al-Ma'mun and, what's his name? Al-Amin al-Ma'mun, right? So he had a mu'addib for them. And so he would sometimes come and like watch what they're doing. And so one time, the teacher just finished the lesson with them, right? They're too young, the sons of the Khalifa, right? And so he's about to leave, the teacher's about to leave, and they both race to get his what? To get his shoes, like his na'al, his slippers, right? And so the Khalifa's watching from behind the scenes, And he's like shocked, right? He's like, subhanAllah, look how honored this person is. And so later he brought the mu'addib, the teacher, in front of him, and he said, Man a'azzun nas? Who's the most honorable people? طبعا if you want to stay alive, you will say al-Khalifa, right? You say, of course, nobody, who else? يعني, the Khalifa, the president, the king, whatever. He says, no, that's not true. He says, a'azzun nas, the most honorable people are the ones that the sons of the Khalifa run to get his shoes. Subhanallah. Because of his ilm, يعني, because of his status of ilm, okay? The sons of the Khalifa, they were running to get his, and you see, subhanAllah, يعني, examples of that the people of knowledge, when you have ilm, especially ilm al-shari, okay? People respect you, people treat you well, right? Regardless of your status in the dunya, right? Regardless of your status in the dunya. And then he says, وَيَجْلُو مَا بِعَيْنِكَ مِنْ غِشَاهَا. Another يعني, narration, مِنْ عَشَاهَا. Al-asha basically is something that kind of blurs your vision, okay? Like you know the famous scholar, what's his name? Al-A'mash, right? He had an issue with seeing, like you couldn't see very well, right? And so he says, this knowledge, okay, it clears up, okay, if we say ghishaha, the film over your eyes. What does that mean? Yani when you're ignorant, right? It's like you're blinded, he's saying. He wants to give you an image that when you're ignorant, it's like you're blinded. You have like a cover in front of you, and you don't know what you're doing many times. But when you have knowledge, the knowledge removes that, okay? The knowledge removes that cover, okay? It clears up the film over your eyes. وَيَهْدِيكَ السَّبِيلَ إِذَا ضَلَلْتَ. Okay? And he's giving you an image that you're someone that's lost. Okay? When you're ignorant, you're lost. You don't know where you're going, right? And a lot of times, in anything in your deen, for example, if you don't have knowledge, you don't know what to do. And so you're dhal, you're misguided. Tamam? It's like the person who's trying to walk in the darkness without any light. All of a sudden he gets a flashlight. That's the knowledge, subhanAllah. That's the example of al-ilm. Al-ilm gives you, okay, you know exactly where to go. So it says, وَيَهْدِيكَ السَّبِيلَ إِذَا ضَلَلْتَ. If you're lost, it gives you guidance, subhanAllah. And subhanAllah, it's 100% true. Even in the dunya knowledge, right? Someone who has wealth, for example, and he knows how to spend it. He knows what he spends, he knows his budget, he knows what's investing, right? He knows everything about the taxes okay? Is he the same as someone who has a lot of money is just spending? Subhanallah, right? It's not the same. لا يستوون, right? من باب أولى, especially the ilm shari, right? A person who has knowledge of what they're doing, right? And if that's the only thing that ilm shari gives you, then alhamdulillah. Then you're someone who has guidance, who knows what to do. You're confident what you're doing. Versus someone who has no knowledge, doesn't know, is he praying properly? Is he doing wudu properly? Maybe he's been praying for 20 years and not even doing it right. Subhanallah. And then what does he say? He says, وَتَحْمِلُ مِنْهُ فِي نَادِيكَ تَاجًا. وَتَحْمِلُ مِنْهُ فِي نَادِيكَ تَاجًا. And subhanallah, there's a story about when Umar ibn Khattab was in charge, was the Khalifa. You know, he would have like governors in different cities, correct? And so in Mecca, he was asking one of the governors, who did you put as your deputy? Okay? In Mecca. طبعا Mecca, who's in Mecca? Mecca يعني they're known, يعني Al-Quraysh is there, and so, and you know the Arab, right? They don't let anybody lead them. It has to be someone with status, someone who is known in the city, right? That's why when the Quran came down to the Prophet, even though he was on at least on par with the rest, what did they say? وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنُ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ. They said, why didn't Allah reveal this Quran to one of the great people of the two tribes of Mecca and Ta'if, right? And so Umar al-Khattab asked him, he said, who did you put as your deputy? He says, I put Ibn Abza. And so Umar al-Khattab was like, who's that? Who's Ibn Abza? I never heard of him. I lived in Mecca. Umar al-Khattab lived in Mecca. He says, who's that? He says, it's one of the freed slaves. He says, you put a freed slave to be in charge of the people of Mecca. Like that's a big thing. That would have never happened before. If you've read the history of the Arabs, right? The wars that used to happen over a camel, and subhanAllah, for years, and people would be killed, tamam, just over small things. And so he said, why would you put him as the leader? He said, well, he's حافظ الكتاب, يعني he knows, he memorized the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he knows his fiqh, and he knows al-fara'id, right? The inheritance, the rules of inheritance. And so Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise some people with this kitab, with this Quran, yani, and lower some others, subhanallah. And so even though he's a freed slave, which is a very low status in the society, because of his ilm, he was able to be a leader of all of them, subhanallah. And you know, when you, like sometimes you watch videos on YouTube, you see a kid leading salah, and there's all these people behind him. CEOs, مش عارف إيش. Why? Because he has al-ilm, just ilm of the Quran, subhanallah. And then he says, وَتَحْمِلُ مِنْهُ فِي نَادِيكَ تَاجًا. Okay? He says, this ilm is like a taj. What's a taj? It's a crown. He says, this knowledge is like a crown. Okay? And when you're in your nadi, what's a nadi? It's like where you sit with your friends and, you know, when you're, the place that you like to chill, like your club, the place where you chill with people. He says, whenever you go there, it's like you're carrying a crown. This ilm that you have, it's like you're wearing a crown. Tamam? Imagine like you wear a crown. People are like, oh, nice. طبعا these days, what would be the equivalent of that? You know, maybe like you're wearing like something really nice, okay, like expensive clothes or maybe a nice expensive watch, or you're driving like a really expensive car. He says, وَتَحْمِلُ مِنْهُ فِي نَادِيكَ تَاجًا. This ilm, it's like a taj, okay? وَيَكْسُوكَ الْجَمَالُ إِذَا اغْتَرَبْتَ. And subhanAllah, like one of the commentators, he says, if someone had a crown, okay, now nobody wears crowns these days. Maybe the queen, I don't know, or the king, whoever is, she's gone, right? She passed away. Whoever it is now, I think they have a crown, right? Do they still wear crowns these days? But back in the day, they would wear a crown, right? طبعا, can this crown be removed? How?
Yes, it's possible.
How? Naam, who said it's possible? طيب, how? Somebody removes it, tamam, or he loses his status, or what? Or he dies. صح? Or he dies. Tamam? But subhanAllah, the crown of ilm, the taj of ilm, nobody can remove it from you. It will never. Even when you die, subhanAllah, even when you die, it stays there. You still have this taj, okay? وَيَكْسُوكَ الْجَمَالُ إِذَا اغْتَرَبْتَ. He's still talking about knowledge. He's saying that knowledge, it's like a cloth, right? And so it's a cloth that beautifies you. تَكْسُوكَ, he says, al-jamal. He doesn't say it makes you beautiful. He used the word al-jamal, which is in Arabic is a masdar. Yani it's the meaning of the word. Okay? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ الْبِرْ. Okay? He used the word al-bir. Yani when you use the masdar, I think in English, they call it adjourned or something. And it's basically the word that describes the meaning, right? And so it means all of it. Okay? Like you know in English sometimes you say, you want to describe someone as really good at something. Okay, let's say basketball. You say, for example, Kobe Bryant is a good basketball player. Okay, that means there's other basketball players better. But if you say Kobe Bryant is basketball, what does that mean? Yani, he's the best, man. You know? Yeah? You say Messi is football. Yani, he's the best. And so on. طيب. The guys disagree. Guys, you're listening, right? طيب. So he says here, وَتَكْسُكَ الْجَمَالُ وَيَكْسُكَ الْجَمَالُ إِذَا اغْتَرَبْتَ. And so, إِذَا اغْتَرَبْتَ, يعني when you're a stranger, when you travel. What happens when you're a traveler? يعني you're not comfortable. You're treated sometimes badly. People look at you strange. Tamam? So he says, even when you go and travel, okay, when you're a stranger, okay, even then, it covers you with beauty. يعني it gives you status. And people respect you. Tamam? And the question you should ask is, what about when you're local, when you're in your own place, or amongst your friends and family? Subhanallah. And you see, just even in the normal knowledge, when you know someone, like a relative, who has knowledge, right? People listen to them, right? And someone who just talks garbage, nobody wants to listen to them. And nobody even wants to sit with them, subhanallah. That's ilm al-dunya, right? What about ilm al-akhirah? What about ilm al-din? والشريعة. Right? So he says, وَيَكْسُكَ الْجَمَالُ إِذَا اغْتَرَبْتَ. Okay? And then he says, يَنَالُكَ نَفْعُهُ مَا دُمْتَ حَيًّا. You will reap its benefits as long as you're alive. يَنَالُكَ نَفْعُهُ, I know, I'm trying to put it. يَنَالُكَ نَفْعُهُ مَا دُمْتَ حَيًّا. So you will have its benefit as long as you're alive. تمام. So as long as you're alive, this ilm الشرعي will benefit you. Okay. ما دمت حيا ويبقى ذخره لك إن ذهبت. Okay. And you will reap its benefit even after you die. So this ilm الشرعي, طبعا if you learn psychology, geography, whatever ilm you can think of, after you die, is it benefit to you? There's no benefit to you. لكن العلم الشرعي, it benefits you in this dunya. Okay. How does it benefit you in this dunya? You guys tell me. How? We mentioned some of the ways, right? Like when someone who has ilm shar'i, people look up to them, people ask, and subhanAllah, people respect them. Oh, Sheikh, let me get him his water, let me get this, let me get him his high. You saw the example of Harun Rashid and his children, right? Right? Is the mu'addib, oh, let's go get him his shoes, let's do this for him, let's get him food, let's host him, just someone, because someone has knowledge, subhanAllah. Right? So if someone just came here and started reading a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, like I remember when we were in university in UFC, a brother came and he just started, he would lead salah and he had and he was a hafiz, and he would start narrating hadith. He memorized a lot of hadith. And people just started respecting him. And oh, let's take you to lunch, gharib, he's a stranger, subhanAllah. He just came, he's new to the high, he barely speaks English, but everyone's like, oh, subhanAllah, oh, they don't know him yet. So he could be like a burglar, yani. But because of his ilm of the hadith, people respected him and wanted to host him and wanted to treat him well and started praising him, subhanAllah. And so from the benefit of this dunya like that, the tamam. But when you die, how does it benefit? He says it becomes a dhukhur for you. What's a dhukhur? In Arabic, it's something that you store for later. Okay? A dhukhur is something that you store now, okay, for when you need it the most. Subhanallah. And naam? Now your RRSPs and subhanAllah, but you don't even know you're going to use that, subhanAllah. This is like the real RRSP, not really retirement, because the real life, subhanAllah, is the life after. He says, and we know this from the hadith, if you remember the long hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that the righteous man, when he's in his grave, tamam, he will see a man, a good looking man, okay, and he'll say, who are you? And he's telling him, like, good news to you. And he will give him a good feeling. He say, who are you? He says, I'm your good deeds. Right? I'm your good deeds that you used to work for in this dunya. Subhanallah. And so this ilm, okay, when you really need it the most, which is when? On the day of judgment, it will be there for you. Right? So, and its stores will remain after you've departed. Yani after you leave. You can understand it that way. And you can also understand that it will benefit people after. Ilm al-nafi'a, right? And then we know the hadith that from the three things that will remain is ilm that people benefit from. Subhanallah. So you taught, you wrote books, you educated people, you die, okay? That ilm is still moving. You're still benefiting from it. And so you're still gaining good deeds. You're still being raised while you're in your graveyard, subhanallah. Yani, think of that even as money. Imagine like some kind of fund that would keep growing after you are dead, subhanallah. That's what ilm does to you. So ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا ويبقى ذخره لك إن ذهبت. He says هو العضب. Now he starts describing it. He says now هو يعني the knowledge. He's describing it like a sword. He says هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو. Look how descriptive it is. He says this ilm is like a sword, but not just any sword. Are all swords good? Ayman, you're talking from experience?
No.
Not all swords are good. Yeah, there could be a sword that doesn't cut, that doesn't. So it says هو العضب. And يعني السيف العضب is the one that cuts, تمام? Is the one that's sharp. هو العضب المهند. إيش يعني مهند؟ Some people we call them مهند. المهند يعني from Hind. From where? From India. And back in the day, the Indian swords were the best swords. So he would say هو العضب المهند, يعني it's from the best metal steel. ليس ينبو. It doesn't miss. This is ilm. Ilm, he's describing ilm like a sword, okay, that cuts. It's made out of the best material and it doesn't miss. ليس ينبو يعني it does not miss. تمام? And he says, he has there in the footnote number 3, the swords made of Indian steel were coveted for their strength. Very strong, they don't break. ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من أردت. This sword, this ilm, okay, whatever you strike it with, it will hit it. And he says, تصيب مقاتل. Al-maqatil, he says in the footnotes, is like that striking blow. يعني here, like in English you say the Achilles heels. Like if you hit someone in the Achilles heel here, خلاص, he's done. I don't know if anybody's seen, if that thing breaks, خلاص, you're done. It's one of the most painful experiences. When you hit someone there, خلاص, the person cannot move, he's done. He says, when you have knowledge, like imagine someone debating, okay? When you have knowledge, you can shut down the person so fast. But when you don't have knowledge, how do you feel? What happens to you? They give you an argument and you can't come back. They tell you something that's confusing and you cannot talk back, subhanAllah. And you see people like, when you see people on debates, especially now with the issue in Gaza, right? These hosts, they always bring people and they're debating. And when you're listening, you know, sometimes you listen to someone who's just talking gibberish, right? Just talking gibberish. And then other people, they're talking with knowledge. And they just like wipe the floor with them. Because of their ilm. This is the ilm al-dunyawi. What about the ilm al-shar'i? Right? Someone comes to you and says, oh, this is halal, this is haram. When you have knowledge, you can actually argue back with them. Tamam? Not I feel, I think, I heard. Right? That's not ilm. Ilm is ilm is the information that you know and that you have memorized. Okay? And then he says, وَكَنْزٌ لَا تَخَافُ عَلَيْهِ لِلصَّى. SubhanAllah, like, if for those of you who have children, if your kids understand this poem and they listen to it, inshallah you will see their grades in school improve. Why? Because it really makes you appreciate knowledge in general, just in general. He says now, وَكَنْزٌ لَا تَخَافُ عَلَيْهِ لِلصَّى. This ilm, this knowledge, it's a kanz. What's a kanz? A treasure. Tamam? He's describing this knowledge as a treasure. Treasure is something that, you know, it's very valuable. He says, but it's not any treasure. Because what's the problem with the treasure? Back in the day when they used to have gold, right? They would store it, but what are you scared of? Someone's gonna come and steal it, right? And subhanAllah, that's one of the ways that banks were created, right? Somebody came along and said, I can keep it safe for you as long as you pay me this small amount. And so they would keep their gold with them. But this is a kanz, لا تخاف عليه لصة. You're not scared that anybody's gonna steal it. Why? Why? Because it's here. Because al-ilm al-haqiqi is here, it's in your heart. Can someone take it from you? And if someone put you in prison, can they take your knowledge from you? So it's a kanz that لا تخاف عليه لصة. Okay? You're not scared of any thief to take it from you. خفيف الحمل يوجد حيث كنت. Ya salam. And if you want to carry all your gold, can you do that? If someone has like 20 bars of gold, can you carry it with you wherever you go? You can't. That's why they created now, like, this digital numbers and tamam. But al-ilm, he says, خفيف الحمل, is very light. The more you learn and memorize, like, does your head get heavier? Like if you memorize 30 juz' versus 10 juz', your head's heavier? No, خفيف الحمل. Subhanallah. It's very light. يوجد حيث كنت. Wherever you are, you can find it. You travel, you do this. Versus someone, okay, who has no knowledge, or someone who says, oh, I have books. Now with subhanAllah, the fitna of Google and the internet, people are like, I'm not going to write. I'm not going to go to the lessons. I have the phone, I can just Google it anytime. Is that real knowledge? And if the internet goes out, khalas, you are like jahil. Like, you cannot pray, you cannot do anything. SubhanAllah. The true knowledge is the knowledge in the heart, the knowledge that you memorize, SubhanAllah. And this is something that's, we really lost it. Yeah, people now just like, oh khalas, collect books, or khalas, I have my internet, I have my stuff. But that's not real knowledge. خفيف الحمل يوجد حيث كنت. And then he says, يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه. Okay, this is something amazing. He says, يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه. Okay, most treasures, when you spend from it, what happens to it? It decreases. But this is the only treasure that's the opposite. So listen what he's saying. He says, يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه. It increases the more you spend of it. What does it mean to spend knowledge? Who can tell me? What does it mean to spend knowledge? To share it. When you share your knowledge with people, it actually increases your knowledge. How? طب أنا I'm spreading it. It's not getting lesser. Am I losing? Ahsan, one of the best ways, subhanAllah, of learning something and making it stick is to teach it to someone else. And if you in school, مثلا, if you really want to be good in your topic, or you want to be ready for your test, Ayman, you grab your dad, be like, Dad, today I'm going to explain to you the chapter on polynomials. Yalla, bismillah. And then your dad has to sit down. And if you can do that, then you are ready. One of the ways is that. And also, when you have to research something, when you have to prepare something, all that is review And when someone asks you a question, you have to go back and look up. So all that increases you in knowledge. Versus a treasure, when you spend it, it goes down. Money, if you have a money, someone gives you inheritance, the more you spend, the less it has. He says, وَيَنْقُصُ إِن بِهِ كَفًّا شَدَدْتَ. And the opposite is true. If you don't give from this knowledge, what's going to happen to it? It decreases. This is the relationship, subhanAllah, between knowledge and giving. So if you have knowledge, and you see people, subhanAllah, they study, but they don't share it, what happens? There's no such thing as staying idle. Tamam? It's like money. Money, yeah, and inflation. If you have money in the bank, okay, and you keep it for next year, is it the same money if you don't spend it? It's not. Why? Because of inflation. Yani if you put 100,000 in your bank right now, okay, and you don't touch it till next year, is it still 100,000? It is. It says 100,000, but the value went down. It depreciated. Why? Because of inflation. Nafs al-shay. With knowledge, okay, I have to keep refreshing it. With knowledge, it's the same thing. If you don't spend it, if you don't share it, tamam, it will decrease. And then he says, فَلَوْ قَدْ ذُقْتَ مِنْ حَلْوَاهَا طَعْمًا. If you could just taste, okay, so now he's saying that this ilm has a taste. This ilm has a taste. What's this taste? He says, فَلَوْ قَدْ ذُقْتَ مِنْ حَلْوَاهُ طَعْمًا لَآثَرْتَ التَّعَلُّمَ وَاجْتَهَدْتَ. Had you tasted the sweetness of ilm. So now he's saying that ilm has a sweetness. Just like those of you who love basketball or soccer, when you play it, you play it just to waste time or what? There's a sweetness to it. Or when you watch something that you like, there's a sweetness to it. Or when you eat something that you like, there's a sweetness to it. Tamam? He says, al-ilm also has a sweetness to it. He says, if you could just taste the sweetness of it, لَآثَرْتَ التَّعَلَّمَ وَاجْتَهَدْتَ. Al-ithar is what? Is to prefer something over something else. He says, if you just tasted just a bit of its sweetness, tamam? If I give you something sweet now, okay, you would want more of it, right? He says, لَآثَرْتَ التَّعَلُّمْ. You would have preferred learning and you would have worked hard for it and got even more of it. But because you haven't tasted the sweetness, you don't really care about it. You're like, whatever, okay? And you see, subhanAllah, like, you hear stories, and we don't have time to go through them. Ulama who, yani, when they, and maybe you've experienced this, you're looking through something in your school or whatever it is, and then you finally find the answer. Or you discover something that nobody else discovered. And sometimes it happens, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives knowledge to whoever. You know, maybe you want to understand an ayah, for example, and you read tafsir, and you get the general idea, but then after like thinking about it, you get another meaning. Yani that feeling, that sweetness that you get, he said, that sweetness, if you just felt it, you would increase, you would want to seek more knowledge. He says, وَلَمْ يَشْغَلْكَ عَنْهُ هَوًا مُطَاعًا. Yani if you felt that sweetness, no other yani fitna would distract you from it. Right? Whatever it is, Netflix, movies, entertainment, eating a lot, going out, women, whatever it is, okay? وَلَمْ يَشْغَلْكَ عَنْهُ هَوًا مُطَاعًا. And your heated obsession wouldn't have preoccupied you. Yani because this guy who insulted him, it looks like he's very busy with his dunya, going out, having fun, traveling. He says, but if you really tasted the sweetness of ilm, of knowledge, you would leave all of that. Even the biggest temptations of this dunya would not bother you. Okay? وَلَا دُنْيَا بِزُخْرُفِهَا فُتِنْتَ. Nor would yani anything of this dunya would have pushed you away from it. If you just really felt that. So, and that's why, subhanAllah, like sometimes you read about this ulama, Al-Bukhari wa Muslim wa Imam Malik, rahimahullah ajma'in. You're like, man, why would he do that? Yani you read in there's one book that talks about the patience of the ulama. It's a very nice book. And so in one of the stories, I believe it's Abu Hatim, one of the muhaddithin, he said, who used to go and gather the hadith, right, that we have in front of us. He said, I could count on my fingers the amount of times I had to drink my own urine. He said, I can count on my fingers the amount of times I had to drink my own urine. What does that mean? He said, when I would travel to the other cities to get the hadith, a lot of times I would run out of water. And just to stay alive, he said he would drink his own urine, subhanAllah. Right? But what would push you to that limit? There must be something. There must be something that would push someone to travel that much distance. He has no water, and he's saying, I remember the times I had to drink my own urine, subhanAllah. Imagine. فَلَوْ قَدْ دُخْتَ مِنْ حَلْوَاهُ طَعْمًا. Okay? He says, nothing would distract you from that. He says, وَلَا أَلْهَاكَ عَنْهُ أَنِيقُ رَوْضٍ. okay? And you wouldn't be distracted by like a beautiful garden, okay? That is really beautiful. وَلَا خِدْرٌ بِرَبْرَبِهِ كَلِفْتَ. Al-Khidr, it's like the place where like the newlywed girl is covered with, right? They call it a khidr. And a rabrab, okay, it's like a herd of gazelles or antelopes. Here the author, he says a herd of antelope, right? And the Arab, they would compare the beautiful woman to gazelles and antelopes, right? Because they're very beautiful like creatures. And so he says, so even these beautiful women wouldn't have distracted you if you just tasted the sweetness of this ilm, right? Because one of the biggest fitness for men now is what? Women, right? And for the young people in the schools, right? Oh, this guy has a girlfriend. Oh, he wants a girlfriend. Oh, he's with that really beautiful girl, and they're always fighting about it, and all just for just some girl. So he's saying that temptation, it wouldn't even bother you. It wouldn't even bother you if you just tasted the sweetness of ilm. Okay. He says, فَقُوتُ الرُّوحِ. Look at this beautiful line. He says, فَقُوتُ الرُّوحِ أَرْوَاحُ الْمَعَانِ. One of the nice things in poetry is something called al-jinas. Okay, and this you study this in balagha. Is they'll use the same word, similar word, but with a different meaning. So he says, فَقُوتُ الرُّوحِ أَرْوَاحُ الْمَعَانِ. The al-qut, what is qut? Is your food, your nutrition that you need. He says, so the food of the ruh, of your soul, okay, because the soul needs food as well. تمام? فَقُوتُ الرُّوحِ أَرْوَاحُ الْمَعَانِ. Okay, so the food of the ruh, of the soul, is the souls of the meanings of what you're learning. Because when you study something, there's the surface meaning, صح? Like you read the poem now, but there's deeper meanings. Just like when you read the Quran, there's the surface meaning that everybody should understand, but there's always deeper meaning. Tamam? So he says, that is what will give you like the food and nutrition of your soul, right? So someone can be healthy, they can have big biceps, they can run marathons, but inside their soul is dead. It's starving. Tamam? He's depressed. He's not happy. Tamam? He's saying what will bring that feeling of happiness and fulfillment of your soul is when you get to these meanings, when you understand an ayah, when you understand the hadith, right? And it changes your life. He said that's the real food. فَقُوتُ الرُّوحِ أَرْوَاحُ الْمَعَانِ وَلَيْسَ بِأَنْ طَعِمْتَ وَأَنْ شَرِبْتَ. It's not that you've eaten and everybody will eat and drink. And then it will come out and it's going to go. But that which you understand and it benefits you, okay? And it hits you in your heart, that is the real food, okay? وَلَيْسَ بِأَنْ طَعِمْتَ وَأَنْ شَرِبْتَ. And then he says, فَوَاظِبْهُ وَخُذْ بِالْجِدِّ فِيهِ. So persist in it. Persist in seeking knowledge and be strict with it. Why? Because al-ilm is not something that you can get with ease, right? And so many people be like, yeah, I want to gain knowledge. But subhanAllah, when you read about these people, Al-Bukhari, and do you think he was sitting home and chilling and then the knowledge came to him? He spent his whole life collecting hadith, right? And so we say, Imam Malik and Shafi'i, I want to be like them. But do you understand what it took to get there, right? Many people will say, I want to be Hafiz al-Quran, okay? If I ask you now, who wants to be a Hafiz al-Quran? Everybody will put their hand up, right? Guaranteed. If you don't, that's not okay. But how many people will actually come to a halaqah if I start a halaqah tomorrow? Maybe 70%, 60%. How many will stay after a month? Yeah, maybe 10%, right? Because they were not willing to pay the price for that. They didn't really understand that it comes with jidd. Hifd al-Quran comes with jidd. Being someone who has knowledge comes with hard work, okay? وَالْمُوَاظَبَةِ is to be consistent. He says, فَوَاظِبْهُ وَخُذْ بِالْجِدِّ فِيهِ. So you have to be consistent and work hard, right? Someone who wants to gain a lot, you think Bukhari went for holidays? Now people are like, I have to have a holiday. I'm tired. Do you think Bukhari went for holidays? Do you think he took he needs 8 hours of sleep every day? Do you think he needed that? But look now, subhanAllah, every single person on earth right now is saying, Rahimahullah, 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 making dua for him, right? He's dead now in his grave, but every single person, okay, is saying Rahimahullah, Muslim, Rahimahullah, and reading the books of hadith that they wrote because of that hard work that they put, subhanAllah. So he says, this status and this reward doesn't come with ease, okay? It comes with jidd. فَإِنْ أَعْطَاكَهُ اللَّهُ انْتَفَعْتَ. If Allah benefits you from it, okay, if Allah gives you it, because al-ilm is something that what? That Allah gives you, okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you. If Allah wants good for you, He will give you this al-ilm al-shar'i. And if you're given this knowledge, then you will benefit a lot. And then he says, so now we have lines 19 to 31 talking about knowledge and action. Tamam? So now he's going to talk about knowledge and action. So we talked about the beauty of knowledge and what knowledge really means and how knowledge can really benefit you. But now he's going to talk about, what about action? So now he says, وَإِنْ أُوتِيتَ فِيهِ طَوِيلَ بَاعٍ وَقَالَ النَّاسُ إِنَّكَ قَدْ عَلِمْتَ فلا تأمن سؤال الله عنه بتوبيخ علمت فهل عملت. So now he says وإن أوتيت فيه طويل باع. الباع, what's الباع? الباع is like a measurement, and in Arabic الباع is like the measurement from one right hand, from one hand to the other. This is الباع. So he says if you're given وإن أوتيت, a generous portion of it, يعني طويل باع, a really big portion of something, of this ilm, يعني you're given a lot of ilm, okay, mashallah, he's got so much ilm, he memorized so many books. وقال الناس, and the people said إنك قد علمت, يعني oh mashallah, fulan, oh Zakaria, he's knowledgeable, oh he learned, he memorized the Quran, he memorized the Muslim and Bukhari, okay. فلا تأمن, then do not feel safe from Allah asking you about it. علمت فهل عملت, you gained the knowledge, but have you applied it? So now he's telling him, yes, even if you gain knowledge, you have to, real knowledge is knowledge that you apply. Tamam? And one of the biggest issues is that people will learn things and they will not apply it, right? And we know the narration of this young boy. He would come to Aisha radiallahu anha, and he would ask for new hadith, for new information. And so he came to her and she gave him some information. He came the next day and she said to him, to the young boy, he said, did you apply what I gave you yesterday? He said, no. So she said to him, لما تكثر حجج الله عليك. Why are you trying to increase Allah's excuses against you on the Day of Judgment? Tamam? You understand what she's trying to say? She's trying to say, seeking knowledge is not the goal. Yani getting a lot of information is not the goal. What's the goal of knowledge? Al-amal. The goal of knowledge is al-amal. Right? So one of the main goals of knowledge is that you take action. Okay, so no one cares if you're going to learn about adab and you memorize 20 poems on adab, okay, and you have no adab, you have no akhlaq, you have no good manners. Tamam? What's the point of you memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you disrespect people? You don't pay your zakah. You don't pay your 5. What's the point? Okay, so he's saying, okay, so make sure that when you gain knowledge, you're going to be asked about it. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ says that the son of Adam, from the things that he'll be asked about on the Day of Judgment is what? The ilm that he gained. Did he act upon it? Did you act upon the knowledge that you were given? Tamam? فَلَا تَأْمَنْ سُؤَالَ اللَّهِ عَنْهُ بِتَوْبِيخٍ. التوبيخ is what? To rebuke someone. Okay? I gave you knowledge. Did you apply it? Did you apply it? He says, فَرَأْسُ الْعِلْمِ تَقْوَى اللَّهِ حَقًّا. Look at this beautiful line. رَأْسُ الْعِلْمِ تَقْوَى اللَّهِ حَقًّا. Al-ra's is the head, right? And the head is the highest part of the body. So he says the highest part. Okay? رَأْسُ الْعِلْمِ, the highest part of ilm, the highest, the peak of knowledge, تَقْوَى اللَّهِ حَقًّا. The real knowledge should take you to taqwa, should give you God consciousness, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have knowledge, but you don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have no problem committing haram, then you don't have knowledge. You just have information in your head. He says, فَرَأْسُ الْعِلْمِ تَقْوَى اللَّهِ حَقًّا. The real taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَيْسَ بِأَنْ يُقَالَ لَقَدْ رَأَسْتَ. What does it mean, رَأَسْتَ? From the word ra'is, okay, ra'asa, to be in charge of something, or to have a position. He says, so the pinnacle of knowledge, the peak of knowledge is to have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not for people to say, look, he's the leader. Oh, he's a PhD. Oh, he's a scholar. Oh, he's a hafiz. He's a hafiz, yes, right? وَلَيْسَ بَأَنْ يُقَالَ لَقَدْ رَأَسْتَ. And subhanAllah, from one of the most scariest hadith is the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, and I believe in Muslim, where the Prophet says, and Abi Hurairah, that the first people who will light up the hellfire are 3 people. And from those 3 people is someone who had knowledge. He will be the first to light up the hellfire. There's no, it's not Fir'aun, this person, okay? And so what's the story? He will burn in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will tell him, oh, I gave you knowledge and made you a hafid and this. What did you do with it? He said, oh Allah, I taught people, okay, for your sake. Allah will say, كذبت, you lied. You did it so people say, okay, he's knowledgeable. وقد قيل. And people said it. SubhanAllah. And that's scary. So people will say it and he'll be like, yeah, I'm knowledgeable. But on the day of judgment, SubhanAllah, he's from the worst of people. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. Okay? When you get it, you have to apply the knowledge. And the peak of knowledge is your actions. Tamam? So no one cares if you have memorized the Quran but you're rude to people. No one cares that you come to the halaqat, okay, and you give khutab but you disrespect your parents. That if that's happening, then understand that something has entered your intention for knowledge. You're not seeking knowledge for the right reason. Because the right reason for knowledge is what? Is taqwa Allah. Is to have God consciousness, okay? So then he says, وَضَافِي ثَوْبِكَ الْإِحْسَانُ لَكِنْ. Okay? ضافي, يعني it's a type of clothes that really covers you well. Okay? Not just any cheap cloth. He says, وَضَافِي ثَوْبِكَ, يعني the fullest kind of cloth that covers you well is al-ihsan. So now he's comparing the real knowledge that covers you properly is like the cloth of ihsan, good deeds, okay, treating people well, right? Al-ihsan. And subhanAllah, one of the minimum thing that al-ilm shari should give you is rahmah towards people and humbleness. If you see someone has knowledge and studied for 20 years and he doesn't have rahmah with people and he doesn't have tawadu with people, he's not humble, then know that something is wrong with that. That knowledge has not properly been applied. Okay? So he says, the fullest of your attire is the performance of good deeds. Yani, the proper application of that knowledge is the performance of good deeds. تَرَى ثَوْبَ الْإِسَاءَةِ قَدْ لَبِسْتَ. Not that you start misbehaving and doing haram, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about groups of Bani Israel from the rabbis, right? They would tell people not to do something and then they would do it themselves. Yeah? And subhanAllah, they will be in the hellfire. And from the long hadith when the Prophet ﷺ went on Isra al-Mi'raj and he met the angel and he was showing him these people that were being punished. One of the people that was being punished is someone who used to tell people to do something and he wouldn't stay away from it. لِمَا تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. And then look what he says. He says, إِذَا مَا لَمْ يُفِدْكَ الْعِلْمُ خَيْرًا فَخَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ أَلَّوْ قَدْ جَهِلْتَ. If knowledge is not going to provide you with goodness, if you're not going to benefit from your knowledge, then it would have been better that you weren't ignorant. If knowledge is not going to benefit you, فَخَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ أَلَّوْ قَدْ جَهِلْتَ. Remember we said about the person, because the more knowledge you have, the more you're going to be questioned about it, right? The more you're going to be questioned about it on the day of judgment. So he's saying, if you're not going to benefit from your knowledge, then it's better that you don't even have that knowledge. فَخَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ أَلَّوْ قَدْ جَهِلْتَ وَإِنْ أَلْقَاكَ فَهْمُكَ فِي مَهَاوٍ فَلَيْتَكَ ثُمَّ لَيْتَكَ مَا عَلِمْتَ. And if this information is going to cast you in this open space, al-mahwa, or mahaw in the plural, is like the space between two mountains. If this knowledge that you have, that you're not applying, is going to put you in this horrible place, okay, then laytaka, thumma laytaka ma alimta. Then what's late? Late is like when you wish for something. Then it would have been better, and again, it would have been better that you didn't understand, that you didn't seek this knowledge. Let's just do this last few lines and we'll finish, inshallah. He says, سَتَجْنِي مِنْ ثِمَارِ الْعَجْزِ جَهْلًا. Okay? So now he's telling him about ignorance. Okay? This jahl that you have. And subhanAllah, sometimes, and unfortunately people the feeling that you have, just think of a time when you were sitting with someone and they were talking about a topic and you had no clue about it. How did you feel? When Bitcoin came out and people sit down and they're like, oh yeah, I did this in the blockchain, and I have this wallet. And how do you feel? That's something dunya useless. What about like other topics? Tamam? People, now what's happening in Gaza, you're like, what's Gaza? Where is it? How do you feel? You feel like an idiot. Excuse my knowledge, but you feel really bad. Tamam? He says, سَتَجْنِي مِنْ ثِمَارِ الْعَجْزِ جَهْلًا. And so now he's saying that if you don't have knowledge, it's because you're lazy. And so he's saying you will reap ignorance because of your ajz, because of your laziness, because of not going and learning that knowledge, okay? And then this knowledge, what's going to do? He says, وَتَصْغُرُ فِي الْعُيُونِ إِذَا كَبِرْتَ. And people will look down upon you. Will look down, you will be meaningless to them. Because people respect people who have ilm, right? And especially ilm al-shari, right? When you see someone who knows the Quran, right? just, like how do people treat the Huffaz, Hafiz of the Quran? He could be the lowest status in the society, okay? He might be like a janitor in a school, but because he's a Hafiz, he's respected, subhanAllah. So he says, when you have jahl, okay, when you have ignorance, then people will look down on you. He doesn't know anything. Oh, he's a jahil, he's this. And it's true, subhanAllah. And imagine that feeling. He says, وَتُفْقَدُ إِن جَهِلْتَ وَأَنْتَ بَاقٍ. Okay, look at this beautiful line. He says, وَتُفْقَدُ إِن جَهِلْتَ وَأَنْتَ بَاقٍ. You will be absent, okay, if you're ignorant, even though you're here. Remember, imagine when you're sitting in a gathering, right? Like 5, 6 of you, okay? And one person is very knowledgeable, okay? And you are very ignorant. Are people going to sit down and ask you questions and listen to you? Or are they going to ask the person who has knowledge, right? Imagine that feeling. He says, and so it's like as if you're not there, right? The person who has no knowledge, as if he's not there. Nobody cares about him. Tamam? He could be the wealthiest person on earth, but because he's jahil, nobody cares about him. He says, وَتُفْقَدُ إِن جَهِلْتَ وَأَنْتَ بَاقٍ. You will be absent, okay, if you're ignorant, even though you're right there. And then look what he says. He says, وَتُوجَدُ إِن عَلِمْتَ وَقَدْ فُقِدْتَ. And he says, if you have knowledge, okay, you will be present even if you're not there. How? Oh, subhanAllah, did you hear what Brother Fulan said the other day? Oh, that really benefited me, man. You're not even there and your knowledge is benefiting, subhanAllah. So you're still there. So now we say, oh, Bukhari said this. Is Bukhari here? He's not here. But we're benefiting from him. Fulan said this. The author of the poem, okay, we're benefiting from his he's not here, subhanAllah. So it's a very beautiful line. He says, وَتُوجَدُ إِن عَلِمْتَ وَقَدْ فُقِدْتَ. SubhanAllah. If you have knowledge, you'll always be there. You'll always be present. I want to get just to 31. We're almost there. He says, وَتَذْكُرُ قَوْلَتِي لَكَ بَعْدَ حِينٍ إِذَا حَقًّا بِهَا يَوْمًا عَمِلْتَ. And he says, you will remember my nasiha to you after some time if you truly apply it one day. Right? وَإِنْ أَهْمَلْتَهَا وَنَبَذْتَ نُصْحًا وَمِلْتَ إِلَى حُطَامٍ قَدْ جَمِعْتَ. So he says, so he's saying, if you take my advice, you will appreciate it in the future. You will say, Alhamdulillah, I did it. Right? And then he says, وَإِنْ أَهْمَلْتَهَا. And if you neglect my advice for you. Right? SubhanAllah, like they say of the story of Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas, طبعا, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, he was young, right? He's the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. And he became one of the most knowledgeable. So he says the story, when he was a kid, he would tell his friend, one of his friends, let's go, get ilm from the Sahaba. And his friend, he'd be like, man, the heck with that, let's go play, let's go have fun, let's go chill, right? And so Ibn Abbas, he left him, and he would go to the Sahaba and gain knowledge. And time passed by, subhanAllah. And so now this man grew, right? And he would tell his son, he would say, I used to be with Ibn Abbas, we used to be friends, subhanAllah. But now look at him and look at me. Everybody's going to Ibn Abbas for shi'r, for hadith, for tafsir, right? Everyone's going to Ibn Abbas and he's forgotten. And he's a nobody. In front of Allah, if he's doing the righteous deeds, he's somebody. But in society, he's a nobody, subhanAllah, right? He says, so if you ignore my advice, okay, وَمِلْتَ إِلَى حُطَامٍ قَدْ جَمَعْتَ, and you're okay with these few information that you get from here and here. He says, لَسَوْفَ تَعَضُّ مِن نَدَمٍ عَلَيْهَا وَمَا تُغْنِي النَّدَامَةُ إِن نَدِمْتَ. He says, you will bite. You know when they say someone regrets something? Like the ayah in Surah Al-Furqan, okay? What's the ayah? وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ. What's the ayah? Yeah, على يديه يقول يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول. So the person on the day of judgment, he will bite his hands from nadam. What's nadam? Regret, tamam? Because he didn't follow the Prophet ﷺ, right? So he's saying that if you don't take my advice, right, you're going to grow old and you will really regret it. Is there any benefit from regret? وَمَا تُغْنِي النَّدَامَةُ نَدِمْتَ. What are you going to benefit from that? Subhanallah. Okay? إِذَا أَبْصَرْتَ صَحْبَكَ فِي سَمَاءٍ قَدْ ارْتَفَعُوا عَلَيْكَ وَقَدْ سَفُلْتَ. Look what he says. Okay? And if you see your companions in the sky, sama, literally sky, but here he says in a lofty place, right? You look at those who were with you in the same time, same level, same class, right? Just think of the dunya, right? And then they're successful and you're whatever, right? So he's saying, in the future, if you don't take my advice, you're going to see your counterparts, your classmates, your friends, they're going to be in high places, okay? They've driven in high places, and you قد سفلت. You are just a lowly person, okay, because you are ignorant, you have no knowledge. فراجعها وضع عنك الهوينة. This is the last one I'm going to do. فراجعها. راجع يعني your ego, your inner self, okay? And leave this laziness and this entertainment and wasting time. فما بالبطء تدرك ما طلبت. For what you seek is not achieved by being slow, and by doing nothing, by just wasting time, right? And this is advice that, subhanAllah, like, you know, we say to like the line, he says, ويا ليت الشباب تعود يوما. Okay, what's the ayah? فأخبره بما بما فعل مشيبه. So it's like the person who wishes they could go back to the youth. Oh, I wish I studied more. Oh, I wish I learned more. One of the mashayikh, he was saying, he says, I have the biggest regret that I didn't memorize the Quran earlier. He says, because now I keep making mistakes, right? When you memorize the Quran early, you have time to make it very strong and very firm, tamam? And then the regret doesn't benefit you, subhanAllah, okay? So he's telling him, if you want to reach these high places, it's not with laziness, with wasting time, right? And subhanAllah, nowadays, and I'll finish with this, people always say, oh, I need, they use the hadith, sa'a fa sa'a, the Prophet ﷺ says, an hour for you and an hour for your deen and stuff. But subhanAllah, like whatever they do a bit of work, they have an hour of break, yeah? I learned a bit, I need a vacation, I deserve vacation. I deserve to spend money on this. I deserve to rest. I deserve 10 hours of sleep. But he's saying that that's not what you get, how you get these statuses. If you want to be someone who people look up to, people benefit from, who can get a lot of ilm, okay, then it's a lot of hard work, subhanAllah. One of the most amazing things is when you explain to someone, especially like the parents who come to Quran, bring their kids to Quran Academy, when you explain to the parent what it really means to have your son as a hafiz, it really shocks them. They think if they just come 1 hour a week for 6 years, they'll be a hafiz. No, habibi, that's not, it's a lot of work. You want someone to be a real hafiz, it's a lot of work, tamam? But it's worth it. If someone understands the sweetness that a person and the reward they will get, it's worth it, okay? That's what we wanted to cover. Inshallah, next week we'll cover, inshallah, from 32 to 55, bi'idhnillah. And we'll stop there. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.